Alrighty, everybody, welcome into another episode of the Full Press Saints podcast, of course, part of the Full Press Coverage Network. Once again, it is Alec and Dane here today, and we have a very special mini-series. These next couple of episodes will be all about the Saints training camp battles. We'll go position by position, starting today with the quarterbacks, and really going from there. So, do lots of fun to debate, what this new Saints team will look like in the post-Drew Brees era. But before we dive into that, Dayton, how have you been today, sir?
Hey, doing pretty well. What's going on, guys? Good to be recording again. And, I'm excited for the series. Going to be talking about, training camp battles. But overall, I'm doing great. Ready for some football to be actually played or started, and very slow news cycle at the time as well. Nothing really happening, so it's hard to kind of keep your excitement up about the season because, we still got, a couple months. But we are less than a month away from preseason kicking off, which is pretty fantastic.
And so even less than training camp.
Yeah, and exactly, in training camp, which is what we're going to be talking about mainly on the podcast coming up. That also leads to, some sort of storylines, mainly with other teams. But for the Saints, obviously, what we'll be talking about will kind of be what you guys need to keep your eyes out on for each position and overall for the team. But, we don't really have like a Packers situation with an Aaron Rodgers type thing or any sort of crazy holdouts as of right now. So I guess the one thing we do got to watch for, because we are currently 5 days away from the deadline, is Marcus Williams' extension. Mm-hmm. If he doesn't get extended by July 15th, the Saints don't have an opportunity to do it until, unless they want to franchise tag him again next offseason. So, other than that, no, I'm chilling. I'm waiting for some football to start, but I'm excited to talk about training camp because training camp is where, a lot of things are decided. So,
yeah, could not agree more. So, let's dive right into it. Of course, the first position of this series we'll start with, obviously the biggest one probably, with the biggest question mark, really for the first time in a long time. The quarterback position, of course, Drew Brees retires this offseason. The Saints were able to re-sign Jameis Winston on a 1 year, kind of a Cam Newton type incentive-based deal. Of course, Taysom Hill is returning. They drafted Ian Book in the 4th round, which there are some head scratches about that pick. And then Trevor Siemian was re-signed at the end of the year and will be in camp, at least competing. So, quarterback, for the first time, as I mentioned, in a very, very long time, is not up for grabs. I think we all would like to think it's Jameis who's going to be in line for the job. Mm-hmm. But as we both know, there is some kind of weird infatuation with, Sean and Taysom, if you will. So let's dive right into this. How do you see this playing out? Who do you think will have the upper hand when it's all said and done come week 1?
Yeah, it's crazy. And like you mentioned, for the first time in 15 years, this team does not know who their starting quarterback is going to be. Mm-hmm. We always knew coming into every season before this it was going to be Drew Brees, no doubt about it, especially when we get to this point in the season. Because remember, there were a few seasons where Drew Brees not necessarily held out, but obviously he waited a very long time negotiating with the Saints, and the Saints negotiating with him on what kind of deal to sign, how much money to give him, how long of the contract. But we always knew Drew Brees was going to come back. We always knew, especially around this time of the year, that he was going to be playing for the Saints. That is not the case this time. We don't actually know who the starting quarterback is, and I know a lot of Saints fans are, undoubtedly in their mind saying it is going to be Jameis Winston. And I don't blame you guys for thinking that. I want to think that full-heartedly myself too. But like Alec just said, there is an infatuation involving Sean Payton and Taysom Hill. Dude loves Taysom Hill. Loves what he brings to the table, loves his versatility,
or maybe
loves the offense.
Maybe it's more Sean wants to prove people that he's right and that he is this sort of offensive genius that, he can take, what many would consider like a project / scab quarterback who kind of just does it all, and he can make him a full-time starter for 17 games now.
I think that definitely can be part of it, a pride thing kind of coming in.
Because we know what kind of guy Sean is when it comes to it's his way or the highway, right?
Right, no, for sure. But at the same time, too, I think Sean has been in this league for long enough to where I feel like he knows. And also, he's had many failures. I mean, the signing of C.J. Spiller is one of the he could not make that work. Obviously, injuries with Spiller, but Spiller was never going to work.
Kobe Fleener,
with this, Kobe Fleener was probably the worst, and Peyton swallowed his pride and just let it go. Teddy Two Gloves agrees, and for this particular situation. I think that you're right, but also I feel like Sean Payton will give it up if he does not see Taysom Hill perform well in training camp. But I think the floor for Taysom Hill's performance in training camp for him to maybe either win the starting job or at least get playing time is so much lower, or I guess I should say so much higher than that of Jameis Winston, however you want to spin it, because I think Jameis Winston has much more room for error in training camp than Taysom Hill, based off of how much Sean Payton does enjoy Taysom Hill's game. But I think at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, I think Jameis Winston will outperform Taysom Hill in training camp, and I think that he will win the starting job, and I think that's really important because I really want Taysom Hill to just be that versatility, every position type guy. I think that that's what he's built for truly in the NFL. Line him up at running back. Line him up at tight end. Line him up at wide receiver. Put him in for some, maybe flea flicker, other trick play passes. Put him in at regular quarterback every so often, maybe to just run downhill. Taysom Hill is a fantastic downhill runner. Taysom Hill can catch the ball really well. He's obviously very keen on offense. He can play on special teams. If Taysom Hill is your starting quarterback, that can't happen. So I feel like because of Sean Payton's likeness of Hill, his floor will be much lower. He will have a lot more room for error in camp, so to speak, than Jameis Winston. Because, again, Jameis Winston, his last full season in the NFL, the last season he started, he threw 30 interceptions. We understand the mistakes he can make. So his margin for error is so low that I feel like if he messes up too much, we very well could see Taysom Hill starting week 1 against the Packers, which is why I'm very hesitant to say for sure Jameis is going to start. But if you look at pure quarterback stuff, Jameis Winston should be quarterback number 1. I think he will win the starting job, and that's great because Taysom Hill needs to be that kind of scat back, multiple roles type guy, and he can't do that if he's starting. And he can't really even do that a lot of the times when he's a backup. Remember, we saw when Breeze was injured and Taysom Hill was the backup, he was used in other positions a lot less because of the fact that, if now your starting quarterback, whether it be Teddy Bridgewater or Jameis Winston, gets hurt, then Taysom Hill, is your backup. He needs to stay healthy, so you can't have him getting hurt playing other positions, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So it's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be interesting. Don't fully count Jameis Winston being in. And if that's the case, let's say Jameis Winston wins the starting job. Alec, I know you also talked about Ian Book, who's the other, I think, quarterback that will actually make the team. I don't think Trevor Siemian's making this team.
And I love that you brought this up because this is a very important point people do not seem to mention enough. If Jameis were to be the starter, you would assume Sean Payton would want to use Taysom Hill in his usual Joker, jack of all trades type role. That would essentially means Ian Book, Trevor Siemian, QB3. The fight is on.
Yes.
And, I mean, look, with Ian Book, we saw at Notre Dame, and I know it's really funny, because when I look at just, on the surface, you look at Ian Book, he's a guy who won a lot of games at Notre Dame.
Right.
The most winningest quarterback in school history, right, at Notre Dame. You saw a guy who did have a lot of arm, but he had the touch and the accuracy. He's a natural-born leader.
Yeah.
And he is a guy that both Payton and Breeze spoke highly of in the offseason. Because, of course, Breeze is working with NBC now. He'll cover Notre Dame games. So, yeah, it's really interesting because you see all this coming and you're thinking, wow, Drew Brees clone, if you will. But
sure.
And then
the more I watch Ian Book film, the more I do enjoy him as a player. And you definitely look at his accolades. I mean, I live over here on the West Coast. You live in Texas. Notre Dame football is so popular in the Midwest, though.
Yes.
So people in Midwest definitely know who Ian Book is.
It's like
college football playoff team. They were one of the top 4 teams in college because of Ian, or partially because of Ian Book. So
it's like Texas for me as to what, Oregon for you, I guess, up there?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Oregon is the biggest college in the closest proximity to me, which is funny because I live in Washington State, so you would think University of Washington would be bigger, but I actually live closer to the Eugene University of Oregon campus than I do to the. So it's almost just kind of like demographic type thing. But U of O is kind of what it would be for me, and not a lot of people know about Ian Book and how prestigious he was in college, how many games he won in college, and again, they were a top 4 team. They went to the college football playoff, so. Dude can play football. Again, he's undersized, small, doesn't have, especially when you talk about sideline throws, does not have the arm strength or accuracy, I think, at least right now, to make it in the NFL.
He has a touch, though.
He's got the touch for sure, which again, is exactly what Drew Brees exhibited.
Especially the last couple of years, the arm strength was noticeably declining. They relied on the touch, the mid-short passing game, which it worked, but we knew what we saw the last 2 years wasn't a total reflection of what Drew Brees was his career before that, right?
That wasn't really Brees, no, not at all, no. But so Ian Book could definitely be a decent, fill in the role of a second string
clipboard guy,
a clip holder. Because that's the thing. Let's say. I'll just throw this out here. I don't think it's going to happen, but let's just throw this out, especially since we have a billion tight ends as it is. But if the Saints want to move Taysom Hill to tight end so that they can then carry Ian Book, Jameis Winston, and Trevor Siemian, I mean, you just technically make Siemian the backup, right? He actually has NFL experience. He's not great, but I mean, he has NFL experience, and he can be your backup. Ian Book has third, learn from both of those guys. Taysom Hill, can also run quarterback whenever he wants or whenever Sean Payton wants him to, but technically his position is different. But, we have, as of right now, 1, 2, 3, 4, we have 5 tight ends on the roster. He could move him to fullback of some sort. It's just hard to, carrying 3 quarterbacks on a roster is hard as it is. So trying to carry 4 and moving him to another position would be ideal, but I don't think that's possible. But that is a thought, because then you have Siemian as backup, Ian Book as your third, just so that if you do need to put somebody in for the injured Jameis Winston, you still could have Taysom Hill do it, or you could have Siemian do it if you want to run Taysom Hill in those plays still. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens, but it all rides on who is going to be the name of the starter, and if it is Jameis Winston, then Saints have a lot of options.
Yeah, and as you said it earlier, I would like for it to be Jameis Winston, and we don't know 100%. It's not guaranteed. It is his job to lose, but I want to bring up an interesting point. People will look and go, last year he was, 5,000 yards, 30 touchdowns, 30 picks, and then I want to say 8 or 7 fumbles on top of that. Something he had a ridiculous high amount of fumbles as well. People don't talk about that enough, but for him to succeed in this offense, because if we're talking about turnovers, I want to throw out some Brees pick numbers from 2010 through 2017. All right. So the number of picks Brees threw in order from 10 to 17 is, in 2010, he threw 22 picks, 2011 14, 2012 19, 2013 12, 2014 17, 2015 11, 2016 15.
Double digits just about every year.
Exactly.
Or double digits every year. And then 17 and 19 is high.
Yeah. And then, 17 to 20, of course, the game changed in that offense. There wasn't as many shots on the field. So, 8, 5, 4, and 6. So, for him to have a success, I think he can in this offense. I think it's for him to go off for, 48, 4,900 yards and, 32, 33 touchdowns to 15 interceptions. That's just as good as Brees was in 2016.
Right.
And he threw for how many yards that year? 5,000 yards.
Jeez.
So, for people to go out there and say, oh, he just cannot turn the ball over, that's a bullcrap statement, because Brees, and I understand the defense was horrible during those times, and Brees, the Saints had to throw themselves into these games to stay competitive, but the quarterback can't be a little more carefree with the ball, especially with this team and this defense. They can be a little more carefree, and Sean can dial up more plays and take more risk because now he is the quarterback to get the ball down the field. So whether it's Jameis or Taysom, because both of them have a cannon of an arm. So this team, regardless, is built to take more shots down the field, get more creative with the play calling, and expand it as well, because this team all around is still, to me, a playoff caliber team. And the quarterback can go out there and have, 14, 15 picks, and I'd be okay with that.
Yeah, 14, 15 picks is
that's okay with me.
And obviously we've been spoiled over the last few years because Drew Brees did not turn the ball over very much. But all you guys listening, I'm sure if you've been fans for a while, remember the years where Brees did throw a lot of interceptions, and he had a few games where he had 2 or 3 interceptions, and after the second or third one, it's like, man, what is this guy like? Sometimes there were just things, and they were always like, what is Brees seeing here? It was never like. A lot of times it wasn't like the quarterback making a good play on the ball. It wasn't like a dropped ball by a receiver. A lot of the times it was just Drew Brees just kind of throwing the ball and running. But he would still be able to toss for 4 touchdowns that game and over 400 yards, and we'd win the game. Like, that's just how Drew Brees was able to operate. Now, during those 7-9 stretches, yes, that was absolutely painful and pitiful. And, the turnovers were bad, and that's why the turnovers for Winston were also very bad and under a microscope because the Buccaneers just weren't winning football games. If he gets anywhere near 30 interceptions, I mean, that is just bad. If he gets under 20 interceptions and is still able to throw for over 20 touchdowns and, over 4,000 yards, that is an absolutely solid season. So, it's going to be interesting to see how he does transition into this Sean Payton offense, because you're right. Sean Payton has his quarterbacks, when he knows they have a good arm, take a lot more shots than we've seen over the last few years. It's kind of like Bruce Arians' offense as well. But the question, I think, is will Sean Payton go back to his roots? And that's what we're going to talk about in the next episode, too, the running backs. Is he going to use Murray and Kamara over and over again? Because we've been reading a lot of reports about Latavius Murray possibly getting more looks this season, him wanting to be more efficient, even though he was very efficient already last year.
Especially on third downs.
So if I'm Sean Payton, I'm going to be looking to kind of change my offense up just a little bit more. Run the ball, more runs, maybe even, I guess not really read options, but a lot more zone runs, a lot more guards being pulled, just anything to kind of spice it up here and there, and then a lot of screen passes as well for Kamara, whether that he be in the slot or out of the backfield. I think that utilizing that will really help keep the turnovers down, and then also open it up for big shots down the field, keep defenses kind of in a lull.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's going to be interesting. There's a lot of factors that go into this quarterback debate. So.
Yeah, and let's just say, first of all, my heart cannot take 17 games of Taysom Hill at quarterback.
Oh my gosh!
No, those 4 games were enough for me as it was.
Miserable
on the old hard endings and the stress. But
right.
with Jameis, so here's the thing, right? I see this on Twitter. People are talking about, Jameis is bound to have an MVP type, comeback player of the year season. It's like, well, that's not guaranteed.
Yeah,
first of all, that's not guaranteed. Don't.
It's not guaranteed he starts.
Exactly.
Right? Like, it's not even guaranteed he starts.
And if he were to start, it's not automatic that Jameis goes out there and just throws for 5,000 yards and 30 plus touchdowns and 6 interceptions. Like, it's not guaranteed. You got to see the process go through. It's not gonna. Sometimes most of these things, they take a year or two to develop, right?
Right.
Roughly, and for a quarterback with a new team and a new system, he didn't start either. So it takes a little longer to get that all, flowing and, fluently and, for it to move with ease. There are going to be some bumps, and you cannot turn on Jameis the moment he throws a pick, okay? Because that's the quarterback he is. When Jameis came out, the lazy comp I made, and I say lazy because I just looked, on the eye test, is Brett Favre, right? He's a quarterback who will stand in the pocket, move around, try to elaborate on a play, not give up on a play when he should, and he'll force a stupid ball into double or triple coverage or overthrow a guy, and you're like, what the hell? Right. That's just the court. You cannot take that out of the quarterback. When the natural gunslinger in him is just who he is. So you gotta live and die with the turnovers that happen. Because Jameis, as much as we want to assume Sean Payton can take this offense, assuming he can take Jameis and make him, a 6 to 8 pick per year quarterback, that's just not going to happen. He is a guy who will take those chances, and he'll live and learn with them, and that's what we got to do as fans. Because we've been not spoiled, but just we watched really good quarterback play these last 4 years with great decision making, timing throws, and super accuracy. When Jameis, we're going to expand the playbook. It's going to be different. So with different, there's going to be, prone for more turnovers or missed opportunities just because it's just a different quarterback than Drew Brees. They're two totally different quarterbacks. So just don't turn on Jameis the moment he throws. Don't turn on him the moment he has the game with, a 1 touchdown to 2 or 3 picks, because it's just who he is. And I still think Jameis gives us the best chance to win this year going forward over any other quarterback on the roster.
For sure. And Alvin Kamara and Michael Thomas give us the best chances to win in our offensive line, period. So, it will help whatever quarterback is in the starting position. Those guys will help for sure. They're the key.
Yeah, and that team is just so good right now. That's still a playoff caliber team. So,
no doubt.
Yeah. Oh, that was great. I mean, so really quick here, let's just predict the depth chart. Who do you keep at quarterback?
Here's I think it's going to be Winston, in order from 1 to 3. Winston, Hill, Book. Those are going to be the 3 guys I think to open it up. Again, if I had it my way, it's probably going to go Winston, Simeon, Book, put Taysom Hill into whatever other position you want. Put him as your second fullback, I guess, and then you can play him in wherever you want to. Because, the new rule changes with the numbers. Taysom Hill doesn't have to. Now, I also don't know if there's got to be a certain deadline where you change guys' position for the season. That might have already passed, so that might not even be an option. I might just be, just talking fantasy here. But I think that would be. But at the end of the day, it's probably going to be Winston, Hill, Book as the 3 quarterbacks we start the season with. That is my prediction right there.
And I think I'm going to take the same prediction as you, but I'm going to change the order. I'm going to go Winston. I think Book will technically be the number 2. It's like Jameis last year. Like, it was Brees, Jameis, Hill.
Sure.
But when Brees got hurt, for the sake of Taysom play whatever he wanted to do, Winston went in, but from there on, it was Taysom Hill's time.
Sure. And I could see that happening. Like, technically on the depth chart, Book could be second. I don't think Sean Payton will throw Ian Book out there at all. Like,
no, he won't.
That is feeding him to the wolves.
Yeah.
Now Ian Book could be the guy who ends up on the practice squad, right?
It could be Simeon.
If they cut him, he's going to be picked up on waivers. I'm pretty sure before he can get to our practice squad. So I feel like they're just going to keep him on the roster regardless. But if Ian Book throws 1 pass this season, it will be because every other quarterback got injured. I don't think Payton will throw him out to the wolves like that in his rookie year. But I could see that happening, Joe, just for I guess,
just for the sake of allowing Taysom Hill for that game to continue doing what Hill does, and then from there on out, like last year, you would roll out with Winston Hill for however many games you would need. But yeah, so that was a great talk, man. Great discussions. Looking forward to the quarterback battles this year. Should be interesting nonetheless. If that is it, I think we're going to wrap it up there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Don't forget to follow us Twitter at SaintsFPC. And coming up next, we'll have the running backs. Break those down. Alvin Kamara, Latavius Murray. Who fits it behind those guys? We'll discuss all that on the next episode, so stay tuned.